Welcome to the Nest Podcast, your weekly home for sports news, video game reviews, and hot takes with your hosts, Brandon, Zach, and Justin. Enjoy the show.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Nest Podcast. This is episode number 87, the Rob Gronkowski episode, presented by Sportszilla. I'm your host, Brandon. Joining me, as always, are my co-hosts, Zach and Justin. Fellas, what's going on?
What's up?
Bored to death.
Bored to death, sitting at home on coronavirus lockdown, day whatever the fuck.
Yep.
Kind of lost track of days at this point.
The only day that I'm keeping track of is that this is officially day number 12 without baseball. And I want you to know that I'm making it. I'm surviving, but man, I miss it.
Yep.
I miss every sport. I spent an hour last night watching the kids drive, chip, and putt competition from April of last year. That's pretty bad, man. That was some of the most boring stuff I've ever watched, but it was so exciting at the moment.
Well, yeah, I've seen a lot of people that are watching ESPN, the Ocho, when they came out with some of their crazy cornhole competitions and stuff like that. It just goes to show how powerful sports are and how much, that's all we want to do is just watch sports. And when it's all taken from us at once like this, it's crazy that we have nothing. They're talking about the NBA season may just be a wash at this point. I saw something today. I don't know how true it is. I didn't really go into the sources, but maybe the 2020 NCAA football season could get pushed until sometime in early 2021.
No, anything but that, man.
If they start messing with football, I know Justin's going to pull out his hair.
Oh, geez.
Is that because they can't get their summer camps in time?
I think that has something to do with it, Zach. And they're also just concerned about not being able to draw crowds, concerned about having, limitations put on selling those tickets because that's where they make their money. If they don't have those ticket sales going through the roof, they're not making cash,
Right.
I can tell you one thing though, if it doesn't have to do with limitation, it just has to do with like being scared to go to the game. If you're selling tickets to the Tennessee football game, that stadium's gonna be full. It doesn't matter. Like the students and all the fans, they're not going to care regardless. And that goes the same for about any SEC school or any of the bigger schools.
Yeah, but if your states are telling you that you can't do that, then they're pretty much their hands are tied at that point. But MLB's exploring that option. They're exploring the idea of potentially playing without a crowd, potentially using the spring training complexes that are much smaller and closer together, so it limits the travel. Trying to do that because in Arizona they're all pretty much within like a very short driving distance of one another, and in Florida they're a little more spread out, but they can at least be drivable.
It's not like you're flying from coast to coast.
Exactly. So it would be interesting to see if that's something that they implement at least to get the season started, because if not, it's not looking good. The city of Toronto closed down until sometime in, I think, June. So you wouldn't be able to have the Blue Jays hosting games in Toronto until at least that date. Probably going to shift further to the right as this thing keeps progressing. And that's just a small little impact that this virus is having. If Toronto does that, who's to say New York's not going to be able to host games? Even if the MLB decides they want to start having games again, you can't go to New York City right now. You can't go to a lot of these places right now. It's just not going to work. And I don't know, Zach, I know you've been keeping up with some of the rumors and some of the ideas floating around. Do you think it's even possible for them to squeeze in 100-game season if they don't even get started till June, July timeframe?
Yeah, if it gets pushed back that far, it's going to have to be shortened. I mean, even if you do double headers every day, that's just not enough time. But by June, July, that's almost half the season gone at that point. and the All-Star break will be right around the corner. So it's too much time. I think if they can get the season at least going with no stadiums, like you said, in the spring training camps or something like that, or maybe even do it in minor league stadiums in the rural parts of the country where they're not as affected by the coronavirus. But then on the other hand, you could say that those players traveling to that town might bring it with them and then thus further spread the disease. So
Sure.
it's a huge, complicated thing. And I don't know, it's going to affect a lot of stuff for a lot more than we think time wise. I think it's going to extend fully into this year, if not next year.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy to think about a world where we might not have any sports at all in 2020. But when I was seeing that article about NCAA pushing their fall football schedule to spring 2021, I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, holy shit, that means no college football this year at all. That would be one of the craziest things.
Oh yeah, this is completely unprecedented.
You know what I think about, and I know Marley's young, so I think about it with her. But some of these other kids that this was their last chance to get that scholarship. This is their last chance. They worked so hard all year to show what they have this year. Like, baseball right now, it's being canceled. There's a lot of kids out there that's played, every weekend for years to get ready for this chance to get a scholarship. And now they're not going to be seen. That's going to affect so many kids. I don't know how in the world you would be able to recruit. I mean, it'd be almost impossible to recruit at this point.
It kills me for those high school seniors that didn't get to play out their high school senior year. For a lot of those kids, this was their last chance of any sort of sports glory because they won't go on to play college ball. They won't go on to play professional ball, obviously. High school ball is as good as it gets for some of us.
Yeah,
Most of us.
there's going to be a lot of walk-ons. I know that.
Yeah. And I hope some of these college programs and stuff are a little bit, aware of a lot of this stuff whenever they have an influx of walk-ons coming on and stuff like that, to be a little bit more mindful of their scouting and to give these guys a second look, because it is kind of shitty that they're not getting it.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, Marley is going into 8th grade next year. So, and I'm thinking at her level, so I can't imagine the high school level going into college. Or even in college going into the majors even.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen a lot of organizations are extending their eligibility out a year for seniors, unless that was just a rumor.
They should.
Yeah,
If not school, at least sports.
and that's all well and good for your college ranks, but that doesn't do dick for your high school students. You can't.
Yeah,
you can't have a freshman in high school coming back to play their senior year of whatever sport. It's just not going to work.
Yep, they're screwed.
So yeah, sucks. I mean, I guess there are a few different sacrificial lambs in all of this, and that is definitely one of them that they're not getting the love and recognition. And because a lot of people are like, yeah, it's just high school sports. But again, for a lot of those kids, this is as good as it's going to get.
Right. And a lot of people are the only way they can get into college is with their athletic talent. There's no way they're going to get a scholarship any other way. So it's either this or they're not going to college at all.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean, this thing has really affected the whole globe in a way that no one saw coming, obviously. I mean, how could you?
No, you're absolutely right. And it's good to have the trio back this week. We ran it as a 2-man show last week with Justin was absent. And I know, Justin, you were busy dealing with something to do with basically the coronavirus in and of itself, because the gym, closing the doors because of the virus, can't let those guys be in there fighting. And they were doing an article in the paper there locally, right?
Yeah, we were in the paper on Wednesday. Met with the press last Monday, so we had to make sure everything was shut off. We officially locked the doors. Also, I had to go get supplies because Tennessee went on, required lockdown now. So I had to go out and not only take care of the boxing family, but I had to take care of my own family. So last week was unexpected, and it all happened so fast because we were still running the gym, but it was only the kids that fight. So like maybe 3 or 4 kids in the gym. All the other kids that are just there to work out or get healthy or train, we locked the door to those kids and we concentrated on those ones competing, because once all this is over, they're going into the Golden Gloves immediately. So they're not going to have time to cut weight or get ready again. But now that it's required, we're not able to do that. So even if it ends April 1st, which obviously, or May 1st, I'm sorry, it's supposed to be April 1st, but obviously that's already passed. Even if it ends that time, none of these kids are going to be ready to fight. If there'll be a lot of them that won't even come back, because once you get out of exercising every day, and because we work hard, man, and once they get out of that and they see how easy it is to be lay around the house and be lazy, I guarantee you your gym will be cut in half when the doors reopen.
Yeah, kids will move on. They'll find something else that they enjoy.
Yeah, and we're not making no money, so
Right.
if we even open, I don't know.
You mentioned that that Tennessee went into lockdown. Missouri has been under quote unquote lockdown for several weeks now. I wanted to ask have you seen a difference in like the amount of travel that people are doing in your area?
Well, I live like on an actual main road. So I see just about the same amount of cars. I mean, and that's the problem. Nobody's taking it seriously, especially the younger college, high school kids. They're still going out. They're still doing stuff. I personally hadn't been out of the house. We've been having groceries delivered. And then we've been quarantining the groceries like in the garage for so long before we bring them in the house. And we've been doing things like that. So I went to the gas station, I think a few days ago, on a drive-through, and there was probably like 30 cars in the drive-through.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed the same thing. It's significantly less than a normal day, obviously, but it's nowhere near like you can tell everyone's not staying at home. Granted, they're not going to the mall and going out to the bars and stuff like that because they're all closed, but it's not necessarily a lockdown like you think it would. It's all things considered, it's relatively normal. A lot of people are still going to work, which is good. But I don't know if it's almost like we're 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and it's affecting people's jobs, but it's also not enough to kind of negate the social interactions that we all have. You know, if you go to Walmart, there's plenty of people in there that could potentially have it, but at the same time, you can't not go get stuff you need. So this is a shit situation all the way around.
We've been using the Swans Van, Instacart, so that basically, they go do all our grocery shopping for us. I can tell you that I'm blessed. A lot of these people don't have jobs. A lot of people are losing jobs because the company can't pay them while they're off right now. I'm blessed. I work from home. I'm getting massive amounts of overtime. And not to mention that my company gave me and my wife both like a huge bonus because of this. Even though it didn't affect us because we work from home, they still gave us a nice chunk of money to maybe pay rent for a month, or
Yeah,
what I mean, just in
awesome.
case, because they don't know exactly who's being affected by it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm actually flourishing in this as far as that goes. So I'm truly blessed, me and Allison both. But I've read a lot and seen a lot of people that are just without jobs, not getting any money right now.
Yeah.
It's devastating, man.
Yeah. And speaking of the pay cuts, I wonder, and I don't know if their players associations would have any, say in this, but I wonder if one of the leagues, like maybe the lesser monetarily successful leagues like NHL or something like that, I wonder if those leagues are going to start cutting pay eventually.
I mean, that is a good question. I know Chad was in the comments a moment ago. He's a big hockey fan. He may or may not be keeping up with stuff like that, but I do know that pretty much all of the leagues that I've followed have said something about a prorated salary for the season. NBA ramping up for their playoffs. They've had to cut back significantly on their pay because they're not selling tickets for the finals. They're not selling tickets for the playoffs anymore. Same thing in hockey. They are in their ramp up to their postseason. So they're not going to get all that big end of season revenue that they look forward to so much.
Right.
So the players are also going to be impacted. But then you got to also think the players that are impacted even more than that are the players that don't get paid squat, the minor leaguers, the junior players on these teams that don't really make a lot.
Right.
And now they're limited to like even a smaller portion because they're not even playing this season.
Right.
Those are the kids that are really getting screwed over.
Right. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea for those leagues that might have to start making cuts to, of course, start at the top and work your way down. And then hopefully you can cut enough so that you can cover those guys who don't make enough. You know, you can cut from several people who make multi-million dollars a year, and that'll cover somebody who makes 40 grand a year, you know.
But in all of this, Hakuna Wetalka.
Here we are.
That's it.
Yep.
Just keep on talking, baby. You know, all the people that are sitting at home with nothing to do, the people that Justin was talking about that have lost their jobs, that are sitting there with no direction to turn to. At least every Monday night they could tune into the Nest podcast and listen to us talk about sports and what's going on in life.
Yeah, and I don't know if y'all, I hate to go back to this, but I don't know if it's happening in y'all's area or not, but like here, Fuddruckers is shut down permanently now after just a few weeks of being not able to work. Beef O'Brady's is shut down permanently now, which has been a staple here in our area forever. I'm seeing seems like every other day there's a new restaurant that's permanently shut down, not just for the COVID, but literally they had to shut their doors.
Oh, I'm sure. Any little mom and pop shop that if they don't make their sales, they don't make enough money to cover rent. They're not going to be able to recover from this because there was no stipend or whatever you want to call it in time to cover people. I don't know anyone that's gotten their check yet from the government. So it's already too late for that. And if you don't have money for rent, there's nothing you can do. And you can't just come back after this is all done because it's too late. So I think a lot of little mom and pop bars and restaurants and stuff like that are going to be no more after this.
You know, you mentioned Beef O'Brady's. I used to actually work at that Beef O'Brady's before I joined the Marine Corps and went off and moved away from that area. I was part of the original staff that opened up that restaurant in Boone's Creek. And now it's awesome. Closing in like 12 years since opening or something like that.
And Allison just put Logan's. How long has Logan's been around?
Yeah, it's been in Johnson City for decades, it seems like.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Everyone that doesn't live in East Tennessee is completely lost.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just mean restaurants in general. Sure, like, you know, there's always these smaller, they're not really necessarily small businesses, but it's the same everywhere.
You're not no McDonald's.
No. McDonald's will be just fine. They're probably flourishing too right now.
Oh yeah.
McDonald's, Hardee's, Burger King, they're all drive-throughs through the roof.
Yep. All those big chains are doing their drive-through and they're doing delivery and stuff like that.
So let's talk about if we do get an NFL season this year. Coach Sean Payton of the New Orleans Saints kind of let it slip that this is going to be Drew Brees' last season. So 2020, he's hanging it up after this one. If, again, they get to even play it. Justin's obviously thrilled. And what that means for the Saints, you know, they didn't lock down Teddy Bridgewater to the long-term deal. So does that mean that Taysom Hill is their answer going forward and that's the heir apparent to Drew Brees? Or do they make some kind of move to draft one of these good quarterbacks that are coming up?
Yeah, I don't think he's the next guy. He's like a Swiss Army knife type guy. He's not going to stand back there in the pocket and throw 40, 50 passes a game. And by the way, I don't hate Drew Brees. I respect the heck out of him. The reason I'm clapping is because I have to face him twice a year, every year. And the guy's a freak. I mean, he's always, even at his old age, he's still throwing for 5,000 plus yards every year. So, but I think they're going to grab somebody young. They might even be setting up for Trevor Lawrence. I could see him being a good fit in there, or Tua would be a good fit there, but I doubt they have enough. I doubt they can get up there high enough to get Tua because they've got Tua going in the top 6 right now.
They would pretty much have to tank this year with
Yeah.
Drew Brees in order for them to tank for Tua or for Trevor. And that
Yeah.
ain't going to happen. Drew Brees didn't come back in a final season to tank.
No, they're going to get, they'll end up getting somebody this year. Maybe, your boy might go to them because they got Tua going so high. So, and my wife, she don't know what she's talking about because she's a Cowboys fan.
Right. Yeah. We can't take that seriously at all.
I don't know. I just don't see what they have in place being their future.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Taysom can do it all. He's a great 1, 2, 3 down quarterback, and he'll do something flashy and crazy that the defense won't expect. I don't know if he can take every snap, every game, and do well. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, they definitely have at least a full season to figure it out, and I don't know. They might be in a better spot than like the Patriots. They lost their veteran quarterback, and it was up in the air whether or not he would come back. It's kind of nice to have your veteran say, I'm done after this season. Heads up, and now they have a full year to recruit and to try to make deals and stuff like that. So I think they might be in a good spot.
I agree with you, Zach. I think it is more beneficial for the franchise to have that heads up. Whereas, like you said, the Patriots, now they're left with their thumbs in their asses with Jared Stidham as your leading candidate to be your signal caller.
That's
not
right.
exactly the situation that you want to be in. But it is what it is. One thing's for sure about Drew Brees, when he's all said and done, he's a surefire Hall of Famer. And it's unanimous. The guy's going to go to the Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy has been creating a little bit of a buzz on social media and with some of the talking heads lately, because the question was presented that Michael Vick should be a Hall of Famer. And Lamar Jackson chimed in right away and was like, is this even a real question? Of course he's a Hall of Famer. Justin, being that you watched him a lot with the Falcons, even though Allison says that the Falcons suck, what do you think about Mike Vick's Hall of Fame candidacy? And did that 2 years that he missed cost him a chance at enshrinement?
No, I mean, he changed the game at the quarterback position. When he came in, there was nobody like him at all. And now, whenever we have somebody like Lamar or somebody that comes in, who does everybody always compare them to? Michael Vick. That's the guy that is compared to that type of quarterback. Man, what he did coming in the league in that short time was just, you can't get that from maybe like a top few percent of players at that position. Now, he did make a mistake, and that's going to hurt him because, as we know, Pete is everywhere. So he did his time. It's the way he grew up. He's been through it longer than he should have. He did his time, and he's done it. We still talk about it today. So he might not ever live it down. But as far as football ability, 100% he should be in the Hall of Fame. And plus, have you ever known another player in Madden football that was basically a cheat code? I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason they made him like that. He's a freak. So 100% he should be in the Hall of Fame. He should have already been in the Hall of Fame. But
yeah, I think if he is going to be kept out of the Hall of Fame, it'll be because of his transgressions. And people in at least the MLB clearly hold that over people's heads. People like Kurt Schilling, who have never necessarily done anything wrong. They never got caught with steroids or anything. They just have an adverse opinion, get kept out of the Hall of Fame. Who's to say what the voters for the NFL will do? But I could definitely see a scenario where people say, you know what, that is something that I can't forget and forgive. So I can't vote for him. But I agree. You should vote for someone to go into the Hall of Fame solely on their abilities in their given sport. And he 100% exceeded his position's abilities at the time. I mean, that kind of mobile quarterback was almost unheard of at the point, because he did both things so well. He wasn't just a mediocre, passer and a mediocre runner. He did both very exceptionally well. So he's a shoe-in for me, but who's to say what the voters will think?
Well, I guess I'm going to go against the crowd on this one because Mike Vick, he had 22,000 yards passing in his career, 133 passing touchdowns. He rushed for an extra 6,100 yards with an extra 36 touchdowns for a cumulative 2,700 or 27,500 total yards and 169 touchdowns. So I was thinking, okay, let's see what the benchmark is for quarterbacks. Let's see if Mike Vick comes in anywhere near the top quarterbacks or where he falls. So I started looking at ranking the 26 modern era quarterbacks in Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I was like, let's see who's at the bottom of this list. George Blanda. Do either of you guys know who George Blanda is?
Sure don't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Joe Namath, that's a name that you guys should know at least because he's somewhat famous. All right. Remember I said that your boy, Mike Vick, had a cumulative total of 27.5. Okay. George Blanda had 26,920 yards passing, but had 236 touchdowns. So he had 70 more touchdowns than Mike Vick. He's the very bottom, number 26. That's Blanda. Mike Vick does not have Hall of Fame numbers.
Is
Mike
that
Vick
is that the
not a
same
Hall of
amount of
Famer.
time though?
So those years he missed what costed him basically, because if he had never left the NFL, he would have easily made those numbers.
I mean, you can say that time when he was away, he missed a lot, but then when he came back, he didn't get the same opportunities that he would have had he just stayed a starter that entire time.
Here's the way I see it. If Michael Vick's say we're doing a draft with all the quarterbacks right now, right? You see Michael Vick, you're taking him in the first handful of quarterbacks. If you had every quarterback in their prime, and I'm not saying it because I'm a Falcons fan, he played for the Eagles and everywhere else. But if I see Michael Vick and I see Aaron Rodgers and I see all these other quarterbacks sitting there, I'm taking Vick ahead of all of them. Would you not in the prime whenever he played?
I don't know. He's definitely not like greatest of all time. He's
no.
He's definitely the greatest like mobile quarterback besides Lamar Jackson, and we'll see how his career stacks up. But I don't know.
I'm just thinking as a team, he's definitely not the greatest. No, he's not up in that talking. But
it's hard to say because who knows if he would have kept playing, he might have gotten hurt or something. You never really know. But that's a good question. What do you think, Brandon? Because
I've always been a fan of the pocket passer.
I was just going to say the pocket passer has more success in the NFL.
You have these dual threat guys that come along and they have a great season or two. They might put on a decent front half of a career, but look at guys like Cam Newton and Jameis Winston, who now they're sitting around, floating around in free agency, and they're being relegated to obscurity in the NFL because that's all they can do is run a little bit and throw a little bit. They don't have the throwing consistency that you want in an NFL quarterback. So for me, I'm going somebody like a Peyton Manning, like a Tom Brady, like a Dan Marino, somebody that can stand in the pocket and sling the rock.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision because if you look at those guys that are mobile, hardly any of them have anything to show for it, like championship wise. The majority of the champions are all pocket passers. And every now and then a onesie and twosie team will make it with a mobile quarterback. Cam Newton made it, but never won the championship. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I want to show Mike Vick love, but if I were starting a franchise, I would probably pick one of those greater pocket passers.
You know, and that's a perfect segue because right now we're looking at the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock for the NFL draft, and everyone and their brother is saying that they're going to pick Joe Burrow. I've seen some interesting theories and thoughts coming out of some of these talking heads putting their mock drafts online, and some of them have the Miami Dolphins moving up to get Joe Burrow from that number 1 spot. What if you're the Cincinnati Bengals right now? Do you take Burrow and build your future around that kid, or do you see talent somewhere else that you can build around and get a much better deal in the long run because you're getting all of the Dolphins picks plus whatever else comes along with trading that number 1?
Is it me or you want to go, Zach? You want me to go?
You can go.
I feel okay. Burrow had arguably one of the best seasons of any quarterback in NCAA history last year.
But that's just it. One season of it.
That's what I was going to say. But before that, he was in the NCAA, but nobody was talking about him.
Didn't he get cut too from a team?
Yeah, I mean, he was average at best. We'll say that. But you got guys like Tua and you got your boy Brandon. They've been there they've shown it for 2, 3, 4 years. So if you're going to give me, basically your whole draft for this young kid that's only had one great season, heck yeah, I'm taking it all day, every day. I don't care what team gives it to me. I'm taking it. That's my personal opinion. Like I said, last year he was incredible, but I'm going to need a little bit more than that to stay away from all that, especially with the number of quarterbacks that are coming out this year that you can grab in the first round. Yeah, you can keep Joe Burrow.
And incredible in college doesn't automatically equate to incredible in the NFL. Time and time again, you see amazing NFL or college football quarterbacks
Tebow
shit the bed in the NFL. Yeah, Tebow. The list goes on. And if they do end up it only being mediocre, that's exactly what they'll be. Cam Newton, he's mediocre at this point in his career. There's no way you can forecast what Joe Burrow can do off of one good season, where a lot of good things lined up for him. He had a great coach and the rest of his team was great. It wasn't all just on his shoulders. So I definitely would, if the Dolphins are willing to give up a bunch of picks and stuff like that, you might as well go for it.
Now, this is also interesting because the Dolphins right now, if you look at their quarterback depth chart, they've got Fitzmagic, who is their slotted in starter right now, and they've got Josh Rosen, who is a former first round pick in his own right, traded from the Cardinals to the Dolphins. He could be traded along with him to be the next starter there in Cincinnati. That way they get their quarterback plus draft picks to build around. That could be an option that comes to fruition before this trade is up. It'll be interesting to see where Joe Burrow does go, but I do agree with both of you guys that 1 year out of Joe Burrow isn't enough to sway me that he's the one to build my future around.
Yeah. I think what keeps fucking these little, not little, they're as big as anyone else, but the organizations in the NFL that never amount to anything, the Browns, the Dolphins, the Jets, time and time again, they go after these phenom number 1 picks, never equates to anything. They try it again in a few years or whatever, and nothing ever happens. At some point, you've got to say, let's try something else and start rebuilding somewhere else. Build your O-line, build your defense, do something else, because the one guy mentality is not going to work. I mean, of all the Hall of Fame amazing quarterbacks, not many of them are number 1 picks.
No.
So
look at the Browns. I had to look it up because I knew it was a crazy number. Since 2000, the Browns have had 27 quarterbacks. You know how many wasted picks if they would have used got offensive linemen or just whatever. All those quarterbacks, you know how good the Browns would be right now.
Yep.
But every year they throw their cards in at a quarterback. Look at Baker Mayfield. I mean, what a waste. That was a whole wasted draft for the Browns.
Same could be said about the Cardinals taking the aforementioned Josh Rosen and then Kyler Murray
next year.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of those teams do that. They just they give it a shot. It doesn't work. Try the next one.
Yeah, I know. And you're just throwing away picks. And then you've got all these Hall of Famers going, these linemen and these unknown names because they're not a quarterback or a skill position, just going right under the radar. Just, and those are the teams that make it to the Super Bowl every year.
I chalk that up to having a shitty GM and shitty recruiting. If a general manager is good at his job, he can go out and find talent. Anyone can pick the number one pick. That's a no-brainer. But to go out and find a third, fourth, fifth round draft pick that has shown something in high school or college or something that is something that you want on your team, that takes actual skill and actual recruitment skill. And it seems like these crappy organizations don't have that, which clearly is why they're crappy.
Yeah, look at the Browns. They screwed Tennessee too. They got, exactly why they're terrible.
Yeah, the family that runs it. But Justin talks a lot about how the Falcons always screw themselves because they could lose out the rest of their games and get a high draft pick, but then they end up winning, and then they're thrown right there in the middle. What you guys were talking about talks a lot about the New England Patriots style of business. They've consistently over the last 20 years had one of the back end draft picks of the first round. But what do they use that on almost every year? Defense or a lineman. They get a big body or a good stud defender that nobody really looks at because it's not that sexy quarterback or running back that carried their team in college. I mean, Saquon Barkley was great his rookie year in the NFL, but that's all well and good. Now we know that they've got a running attack. Our defensive schemes are going to stop your run game. You've got Daniel Jones at quarterback now. We're not that worried. Like defenses in the NFL can clue in and usually take out one weapon. It's these guys that really stand out, like your freaking Michael Thomas's and Julio Jones. Those guys are a little bit harder to clue in on, so that's why I think they deserve to get a little bit more money. But you shouldn't be wasting your draft picks on these flashy guys every single draft. Build the team, then plug the stars.
Yep. And even if you do have a shit hot, amazing quarterback, if the defense gets to him every single time, he won't be able to do shit. He needs a good O-line as well. And that's the first line of defense when it comes to a good offense is a good offensive line. If you've got idiots there up front that can't block shit, it doesn't matter how good that quarterback is. He's going to be eating turf all day.
That's what I was going to say. He makes a good point. As much as I bag on the Patriots, Belichick's one of the best of building a team. But as far as Barkley goes, any other team, I think he would stand out still. He got screwed. He had one of the worst lines. He's got a garbage quarterback. The poor kid didn't have a chance. I don't care who he was. I don't care if he was Emmitt Smith back there. You put him behind that line with that quarterback, they do not stand a chance. And Barkley still had decent numbers considering everything he played for, or everything that went against him, I guess you'd say. So I felt bad for Barkley last year. I think that kid is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion, if he gets the heck away from the Giants.
Yeah. And that's another thing that teams do. They get the one weapon and nothing else.
Yeah, they don't
one guy ain't going to do shit for you. Yeah, he, like Brandon said, they're going to shut him down, and then what? Now what do you have? A mediocre quarterback that can't do anything. You got to have. You don't necessarily have to have the best in every position, but you've got to have guys in multiple positions so that the defense can't just hone in on one guy and shut him completely down. Yeah,
if you're going to take a shot at one of those superstar guys, you've got to give up the rest of or a majority of your draft and build around him. You've got to, if you have to use every pick as a lineman, if you got a running back, or if you got to build around your superstar. You can't just take a superstar, then go flashy. You're done. I mean, yeah, your fans are going to love you in the offseason because half of them don't know shit. So they're going to be like, oh, we got Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? Whatever. But a fan just sees that name, and I think that's why they pick those guys. Is they're like, oh man, the fans are going to love us in the off season.
Yeah, I'm sure that factors into it. Ticket sales for a big name young kid.
Jerseys.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Yep. He'll sell 1 million number 7 Cincinnati Bengals jerseys. Kids from Ohio anyway, so it's like the writing on the wall. But I mean, if I'm the Bengals, I look at any offer that's coming my way, and I'm willing to make that move. Then we talked about the Patriots briefly. I did want to mention that Robert Kraft took things into his own hands and acquired 1 million of those masks to give to people in Massachusetts and New York and some other state that he shipped them off to. I can't remember the other state, but
Yeah.
that's cool. It's wild that these team owners are sending their own private jets around the world to pick up this shit, but here we are. Welcome to 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see more of it, honestly. I mean, they're all fucking billionaires. It's no skin off their back.
No. Watched WrestleMania over the weekend. That was quite interesting. Yeah, man, it was weird. Like, imagine the Super Bowl with, JV football team. And for the halftime show, they get the winner of the local battle of the bands. Like everything was just half-assed. It didn't seem like anything was even there. I heard days before, it's like, oh yeah, half of the matches have already been recorded, so they weren't even live. It is ironic that this is episode 87 of our show, and we named it the Rob Gronkowski Show because, like Mateer says, Gronk is now an official WWE champion because he won the 24/7 championship at WrestleMania.
That's great.
Yeah, they pulled out all stops trying to make it gimmicky, but that's all it was gimmicks.
I don't watch wrestling per se, but my Facebook was blowing up. It's been like, this is terrible. This is trash. Why in the world would they do this? Like, everybody that watches wrestling was talking so much crap about it. So I was waiting on you to bring this up because I was like, I know Brandon's just brokenhearted right now. Because we talked about it before it started, how they're going to have to like go crazy over the top to make it watchable.
They didn't.
Yeah, apparently they did. Yeah.
Like the two big things that people are talking about coming out of WrestleMania are the match with Undertaker and AJ Styles. It was a boneyard match. It was reminiscent of the old Buried Alive matches that they used to do back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was shot and directed in kind of like a new Hollywood style, and it looked like a damn action movie more than anything. And the other match that they talked about a lot coming out of it is the John Cena and Bray Wyatt, some kind of crazy Funland match or whatever. I know I got the name wrong. Some demented funhouse that took John Cena on like a tour of his entire career through all the bit characters that he was doing as he was coming up. And it was a weird match, a weird, just all around presentation. But hey, they tried to do something no one else is able to, so the WWE at least provided some sort of entertainment. I feel like it's something like what we do here. No one else is doing anything, so we come on the podcast and just try to bring some kind of entertainment, some kind of content to the people out there because we're all bored. We have nothing else to do.
Yeah, you know how hard, guys, it is to talk almost an hour when there's no sports on about sports.
It gets tough. I mean, we do it the best that we can. I do know that Zach broke some news to us earlier that I'm dying to talk about, and I'm sure some of the listeners out there are excited to hear about it as well. Zach, you want to go ahead and let us know?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked that Habib is stuck in Russia and not able to leave, thus not being able to fight Tony Ferguson for the 5th time. And there were some rumors that Justin Gaethje was going to step in, and that has been confirmed. Tony Ferguson is going to fight Justin Gaethje for UFC, I think 249. Same date and everything. The location is still yet to be determined. The latest out of the UFC is it's going to be somewhere on the West Coast. There were clamorings. I think Dana said something specifically about Florida, but that must have fallen through because now they're specifically saying the West Coast. And I saw an article that Ariel Hawani tweeted out that said that the Indian reservations could be a potential landing spot because they don't necessarily fall under the same guidelines as the rest of the U.S. does.
It sounds like that was an idea that was floated by somebody on this show a couple weeks ago.
That's interesting.
Imagine that. It's every week we find that there's something that we've said that happens or is suggested by a major sports organization. It's almost like they're listening.
They might be. We're just not getting no love from it.
That's the only logical explanation, because the things that we say on this show have a way of coming to fruition, or a way of actually happening. And Zach, you said it a couple weeks ago that you think that they should do it on some Indian casinos or some Indian reservations. And holy crap, boom, here it is.
All right.
Unfortunately, Habib's back in Russia or in Dagestan, and he's not able to leave because of the decree by President Vladimir Putin. And I sent you guys the link of like a 20-minute long rant that he was on.
Yeah.
He was talking to what was it, Brett Long?
I don't remember who it was,
but he was talking to somebody, and they were talking about how he couldn't leave, and he's like, just because I'm the UFC champion, I would still have to call and get permission from Vladimir Putin. I would have to get permission from Donald Trump. I would have to get, all these ducks in a row for them to even allow something like that to take place, because they've made the unprecedented action of closing down their borders, saying nobody can travel. Habib was in the United States until March 17th or 18th, and then was like, look, this fight's not going to happen. I'm going home. I'm going to where my family is. Pretty much all of us could relate to that sentiment.
Yeah, he needs to be there either way.
Like, I'm not getting stranded in a foreign country. All these people that you're hearing about that are stranded on a cruise or whatever, that the news is making you feel all bad about, Habib said, fuck that. I'm not going to be one of those people. And he got out. Now, we find out that this fight might actually still go through, but it's going to be different. Now it's Justin Gaethje in there. And that,
you think that Ferguson fight will ever happen? I mean, honestly, at this point, do you really think it'll happen?
Yeah, they have to. I mean, the question still remains, and it's never going to go away until we see who is better. And it might take multiple fights to see who is better. What sucks is that's not much of a draw for the casuals, and that's where the UFC makes most of their money, is getting people to watch Conor fight whoever. People don't really give a shit about Tony, so there's not much of a draw anymore, especially after all this time. We still haven't had it. Now we're supposed to have it, and it didn't happen again. The excitement is dropping for the casual fan. Of course, all the big fans still want to see it, but it's losing steam for the UFC, which might sway them one way or the other. But I think ultimately they're going to have to make it happen.
The thing is like the longer it goes, the more out of their prime they are.
That too.
I mean, so say it's another 2 years down the road and Khabib loses or Ferguson loses, they could be like, I could have got him 4 years ago when we first talked about this. You know what I mean? There's always going to be that, like, that little exception of the fight, regardless.
Zach and I talked about it last week, Justin. Like, the UFC's playing with fire by having Tony Ferguson in these other fights because of that very reason.
Yeah.
If Justin Gaethje happens to catch him and becomes the interim champion, now Tony's recycled back to the back of the line. The interim champion will be next to fight Habib whenever Habib's able to fight again. I know Ramadan's coming up and he's going to take off for that. And then I think the earliest he'll be able to fight after that will be August. So then we would have, hypothetically, if Justin Gaethje beats Tony, we would have the interim unification title fight in August between those two. And then down the road, we would probably have Tony and Conor.
Yeah. That's another fight that people have been looking forward to. And that one would draw way more fans into buying a pay-per-view.
And that's what Habib said. He's like, look, if it was all about the money, I would have chosen to fight Conor because it's going to draw more. It's going to sell more pay-per-view buys. It's going to put more dollars in my pocket. He says he wants to fight Tony. Tony thinks he's running.
Well, Tony should fight Conor and get a name for himself outside of just the ones that watch MMA, and then turn around and fight Habib, and that will be a huge pay-per-view.
Right. Yeah, that'd be great for Tony because that'd be an easy fight for him, I think.
But now he's already lined up to fight Gaethje.
Yeah. And like Brandon said, that's a huge risk. I mean, obviously Tony thinks it'll happen no problem.
Every fighter thinks that.
But every fighter thinks that, and it takes balls to take a fight with 2 weeks notice, and Gaethje stepped up for it. If you watch his fight against Donald Cerrone, man, he manhandled Cerrone. And granted, Cerrone's not the fighter he used to be. He's aging and whatever, but Justin is on an absolute tear, and he's nothing to scoff at. I wouldn't take him lightly if I were Tony. I would seriously consider not taking the fight because he's a whole nother animal. This whole time you were getting ready to fight Khabib, and you were watching tape on Khabib and getting ready for his style. Now all that means nothing. And honestly, I think the ball is in Gaethje's court here. He's got luck on his side because he's coming at a guy who wasn't ready for him, and anything can happen. I mean, look at what happened when Conor was supposed to fight whoever it was, and Nate Diaz stepped in.
Mm-hmm.
That was not good for Conor.
On 2 weeks, and then Nate Diaz knocked him out, or didn't knock him out, but won the fight.
Yep, choked him out.
And Gaethje's not a slouch.
No.
You know, he's 21-2. I think his last loss was against Dustin Poirier, and he's not a slouch either. So I mean,
yeah,
you gotta look at who people have beaten and stuff like that. But Tony, oh man, he's a monster.
Yep,
and
that's
that
a hell of a fucking fight.
It's gonna be a hell of a fight, but it's at the same time going to be a huge disappointment because we all know that should be Habib and Tony.
Yep.
Finally. But again, it's not going to happen. It's called off. It's canceled. And we have to deal with it.
Yeah, I guess we should be used to it by now.
I mean, you would think, right? But oh well.
Sucks.
Anyway, you guys got anything else that you want to add to this episode?
Let me ask y'all's opinion. I got to give this for my Cowboys fans at home. What do you think about McCarthy being the head coach?
That is a good point that I don't think we've talked about much. We mentioned it when it happened, but I don't think we necessarily gave our analysis.
I didn't care for McCarthy in Green Bay.
He's no slouch.
No, he's not terrible, but he's not like, it's not one of them guys that you get and you're like, oh my God, we got you know what I mean? He's kind of on the back end of his coaching career, I guess you'd say. Sure. I personally, if I was a Cowboys fan, I mean, I'd be happy Garrett's gone. Yeah. Obviously, but I don't know. I just don't care if it's not exciting. I guess you would say it's unlike a Jerry Jones pickup.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, anything was a step up from Garrett. I'm glad they didn't go with some, idiot out there or a no-name person. They definitely got somebody with some something in his resume. He's got a history.
Super Bowl winner.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not a bad pickup, but we'll have to see what happens.
It's definitely an improvement.
Oh yeah.
It was rumored that Mike McCarthy had issues with Aaron Rodgers, and anybody that has issues with Aaron Rodgers, I'm all right with. So.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yep. So that's all I got, guys. You guys got anything else? Justin, you got any more random questions about coaches for teams we don't care for?
Hey man, I don't care for me. I had to bring it up though. I just want to tell everybody, be safe, be smart, stay with your family, man. This might be, I know for me personally, this is time that I'm always at ball games here, there, or everywhere. And I've actually got to be home with my family. So as much as it's a burden, it's been a blessing. Just that's all I got to say, man. Just everybody stay safe, and we'll be here if you need us, and we're going to be here putting on a show each and every week, and hope everybody tunes in.
Yep. And hopefully I don't steal your thunder here, Brandon, but if you're into the nerd side of our podcast, which we definitely neglect, we'll be making up for that on Thursday. We're going to bring well-known guest Garth back, and we're going to bring our friend Jerome in to talk a little bit about Elon Musk's latest project called Starlink. He's basically shooting satellites up into the sky that are going to give everyone internet. So be on the lookout for that. That'll be a really fun one.
Yep. You didn't steal my thunder, Zach. You just led right into the next part of what I was going to talk about. And, Zach mentioned it. We have upcoming shows on the 9th. We have that one with Starlink. Every Monday night, we're going to have the Nest podcast, but we also have other guests all throughout the month of April. Guys, all while this quarantine is going on and people are on lockdown, we decided to take advantage of that and just keep producing more content, more Nest podcast shows. I said it earlier, Hakuna Wetalka. It means keep podcasting. It means keep talking. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to just keep doing this so that you guys will stay home and watch us. Give us that little like button and give us that share to tell your friends and family, hey, listen to these guys instead of going out to the movie theater that's closed down. I want to go ahead and thank some of the guys that have been on already since we've started doing this ramp up in videos. Justin and I had a really cool interview with James Leakey, who is a video motion sports designer. And I'm going to actually include that video or that audio along with this episode at the tail end. So everybody who's listening to this episode, listening to us wrap up, hang tight. You got about a 30-minute interview still yet to go. But James was awesome. We also had Jose and Wallow from the McDojo show come on this past Friday night, and we did a WrestleMania moments countdown. So we did the top 10 WrestleMania moments as we saw fit, and we had a good time just talking about the old WrestleManias. And I can tell you that there isn't a single moment from this most recent WrestleMania that makes the list. So go back and catch that. Some of these are just going to be Facebook live stream only. They're not going to make it to the podcast. So make sure you go out and you follow the Nest podcast on Facebook so that you can see when we go live and so that you can get informed and so that you can see all this content that we're putting out there for you. Guys, anything else you want to add?
All good.
All right. Well, we appreciate you tuning in. We hope you come back next, what is it? Thursday, whenever we talk about Starlink. And if not, we'll see you back here next Monday. Peace. Thanks
for listening. New episodes are recorded every week.